can you go ahead and introduce yourself and just share a little bit about who you are now and maybe a little bit of your history, just so how we know how you got to where you are today?
Absolutely, I'd be happy to. First of all, I'm thrilled to be here today, to be spending this time with you. My name is Maryse Cardin, and I'm a communication teacher. I teach at universities, and also I'm a self-talk author and coach. And self-talk is a form of communication that I use a lot in my own self, and that I help mostly women develop inside them. So to go from a voice that's often critical to a voice that supports you, encourages you, and helps you get where you want to go in life. So just like a best friend is there every step of the way with you when you're going through something, your self-talk can become that best friend.
I love that because I think I want more of this. I just realized only recently have I just really started reading about self-talk and being aware of like the different voices, that are talking to you sort of all day. So this is a really important subject, especially I think I think anyone can relate to it. But I know for myself, when I was going through egg freezing, it like felt so heavy, but I think it's because of the way I was like self-talking about it.
Yes.
So, I think it's really good for everybody to hear.
Yeah. And it's very common, because it's like in your head, it's like little radio stations that you can tune in and out of. So if you're listening to a station that's really heavy and this is so serious and the consequences and, then of course it affects your whole body because, we don't realize, but part of you hears everything else that's being said. So one part hears everything. So even if you've kind of tuned out, you're not really that conscious, part of you is. And it gets affected by what it's hearing. So you can really decide I'm going to switch the channel on this and listen to something else.
I love that. That's so important. And that we have actually options to change the channel and really make it what we want. Because sometimes I think especially with anxiety, it can almost feel a little like trapping and like, I don't know where to go with this next. So
yeah, I understand that. Like you can get stuck in it because something will happen. You'll get a feeling, or there's something happening in your life, and then you can choose to. Let's say you're feeling a little anxiety. Okay, you're doing something new. Let's say like egg freezing or something you're considering that's out of the usual that you have no experience with. So it's normal to have a little anxiety, but depending on the story you're telling yourself, you can rev up that anxiety, or you can actually start calming the system down. Just like a pilot decides the nose of the plane, is it heading up or is it heading down? So you can decide, am I actually helping myself with this? Am I going towards how I want to feel, what I want to do, or am I actually kind of harming myself with this?
Wow. So, okay, I know there's a lot to share about this, but one thing that I thought of, well, first, how do you let's just talk about being aware of the talk, because I think it's so normal, like every day we're going about our daily business and our commute to work and we're thinking things and thinking about our day. And so how can we sort of part the ways on what's normal in terms of like processing life and thinking about things versus self-talk that's not productive and can be negative?
That's a really good question. Okay? Because you need to be considering your life, right?
Right.
That's an important part of living and growing and transforming and becoming the person you want to be. So you don't want to be unconscious about everything going on, but you're doing it with attention. So if you need to go over something that's happened that day, then you sit down and that's what you do. And you really can even brief yourself. Now, you know what? I'm going to go over this. I have a bit of time. And you think about that. And think about, is there anything here that I need to change or do? Did I make a mistake? Or is there something that needs clarifying? Is this situation over? Or is this a situation that I'm taking care of actively? And then once you make this decision, that's it. That should be the end of that conversation on that topic, right? It would be like a friend bring up over and over again something that had happened in the day. And you at what point would stand up for yourself and you'd say, enough now. Right? Enough. I've heard it. I know what you have to say. But for our own self, we let it go on where we can decide to actually say to one part, that's enough. was there. I heard it. I'm going to correct my ways or whatever needs to be done. Maybe nothing needs to be done. And we're moving on.
Mm-hmm.
You don't let it take over. Because you're not these voices. You're the one who hears them. Mm-hmm. So like an orchestra, like if you had an orchestra, you would decide, okay, now this instrument plays, this instrument plays. You can learn to have some management.
Wow.
Over, and also take a little distance, right? Just by saying, I'm the one who listens to this voice. You've taken a little distance from that voice that's very anxious or that's very scared or that, is very worried about something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So even like being aware of it, and so you're kind of disconnecting from it, like you're
a little bit.
Yeah. So then when you're saying, okay, I'm done, I've, like let's say somebody really upset you and you keep thinking about that person, but you want to be done with it. When it comes back up again, is it just no, I'm done with that moment, I'm done with that situation, move on kind of thing?
Yes, absolutely. Over and over, as many times as it takes for you to really say, first to catch it, because sometimes we get back, into the store and the first thing we realize, it's an hour down the line. But as soon as you catch it, to say to yourself gently but with force, that's enough. It's the same as a friend. If she kept bringing it up, you would keep saying, I'm done with this. Mm-hmm. But then I replace it. So imagine if you're having a dinner party and you had one guest and you made a big effort for this dinner party. You got the table all beautiful and you've been cooking all day and you got dressed up. And the person who comes is not very nice. All that guest does is criticize the food, tells you, is that what you're wearing? You don't look very good. They don't like the decor. So this is what it would be like to be living with a critical voice all the time. But imagine you also shows up at this dinner party, someone who's really kind and a little funny and brings up the energy in the room, right? It tells you, I love what you're wearing and thank you for cooking for me. I'm so happy to be here with you. So the person who's critical is still there at the beginning, but things have changed because someone else is invited to the table. And that's what we can do with our self-talk. So at the beginning, this critical voice is very hard to manage. But with time, asking it to tone down and fostering other voices, there starts to be more balance, right? Mm-hmm.
I love that visual because it gives it a really, for me, it gives it a nice way to, think about it. So just because I know I love timelines and I'm sort of a planner by nature, I'm sure you can't, put this in a box and it's not perfect. But once you start becoming aware of, sort of that first critic that sits down at the dinner table, but then there's a possibility of the newfound fun friend that comes, how long do you think, just, let's say if you're trying to be mindful every day of this and, does it start, like you said, it gets a little easier for the critic to sort of, calm down?
It gets a little easier. Okay. And frankly, the critic likes to have somebody in charge because the critic, nothing in you is bad, right? Everything wants to bring you what it thinks you need. Okay. So the critic really thinks, I need to be criticizing right now just to make sure she's safe and that she won't do anything and that everything's okay. Okay. So it's a little bit distorted what it's trying to do, but it's not a bad voice. So actually, when you start showing up and taking some command over it, the critic could start to relax a bit. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you're there, you're in charge, you're actually speaking to it. So it realizes, oh, someone hears me and someone's responding, and things can start to shift that way too. Your system can kind of go, oh, wow, there's someone else here. This is great.
Wow.
So that's a little bit, and it happens the more you do it, the more you'll catch it. Like yesterday, I had this moment where I got upset with my daughter. I have an 8-year-old daughter. And after that, because I got upset, I started criticizing myself. Oh, you could have been more patient. Why didn't you walk away? She's so small. And before that, the critic would have gone for it for hours, maybe days. You're a bad mom. It would have said anything that really would, it knows how to really get you, right? Because it knows what your weaknesses are. And instead of that, right away, I introduced another voice. that had compassion for me, a woman who makes mistakes, but who tries really hard. So even if the critic with the other one came and said yes, and just felt like you would for a friend who made a mistake. If a friend hadn't made a mistake, you would be so full of compassion towards her because you would see she's suffering, right? How she wishes that she could turn back time. So that's how it's a little bit different. I still make mistakes. The critic still shows up, but I'm much quicker at recognizing and also comforting myself through that.
Oh, that's a great example. And I think a lot of people can relate, you know, whether it's to a younger daughter or to a colleague or a friend. I think it's really understandable. So, okay, that was helpful to just sort of, you know, think about how to apply it in life. So obviously, you know, I think positive self-talk is an amazing thing and would probably really help you day to day. But do you know some like specific benefits of positive self-talk?
Oh, it's amazing. This is a really exciting time for self-talk because there's all this research and we have neuroimaging and we can see what it does to your body, right? So positive self-talk and loving self-talk has like a host of things it helps you with. You know, it reduces stress, of course, because imagine the stress of having someone constantly in your face criticizing you. Even just toning that down, removing that person would elevate your mood. It has really great effects on your immune system and on how you're able to cope with things. And because you have someone helping you cope, you have your own self helping you cope with whatever is going on. And generally, it brings you a more positive outlook so that, you know, in all kinds of aspects in your life, you tend to have a little bit more success because of this voice that's there to uplift you if you want.
Yeah, I feel like it like brings you up and might even help focus you on the future instead of looking so much on the past. And then you might even focus more on what you want and like where you're going and help you, you know, just, you know, get your life a little bit more on the way you want it to look. If it's not looking a certain way, you know, it might just.
That's right. It can help you really take stock and decide, okay, we're heading this way, right? Like your whole self, again, because one part listens to everything you say, it likes to be briefed. Like you might think, oh, I know what I'm doing or I know what's going on. Yes, part of you does, but part of you's in the dark. So to really say, okay, this is my plan. This is my intention. This is where we're going can have a really incredible impact on so it's like the whole self gets behind you. Go, okay, let's go.
Right.
So I found that really amazing. Like you can become like your own lighthouse. And if it's okay with you, I have a book called Speaking to Yourself with Love.
Yes.
Transform Your Self-Talk. And each chapter is about a different voice we can foster. And I have a chapter about being your own lighthouse. So if it's okay, I would just like to read a short little part.
Would love that. I think that's great.
I think it's encouraging to people. Okay. So we often look to others for inspiration, for encouragement, or to show us what is possible and how to do it. I've been blessed with so many amazing teachers who have acted as guides for me when I've needed help or have been shown a way out of a difficult stretch. We can play that role for ourselves with our self-talk. We can be our own lighthouse, pointing the way. You can direct yourself through challenging stretches. You can provide guidance to create the life that is right for you. So I really believe that your self-talk can really become just like that guiding light that shows you where to go. So when you hit obstacles and challenges, you still know where you're heading. And I'm sure it's very important to a lot of the women that you work with.
Yes, I was going to say it's really good to think of it as, you know, a lighthouse and just where you're going. And so primarily we talk about egg freezing and that decision because I think it takes women a lot of time. It actually took me 4 years because there's just a lot of, you know, financially, there's technology, there's medicine, there's just a lot of components to it that it's still fairly new. But yet it does offer, you know, an opportunity if people want to utilize that. So I think there's a lot around the decision. So I love that, you know, you can be your own lighthouse and guide the way for yourself. But I know that you blog about, you know, really, I think doing some writing and how that might help too. And so I don't know if you can share a little bit with us about writing. I even saw a little bit about using like your non-dominant hand too. And so I don't know if that's all tied together with the positive self-talk. Okay.
Sure. I'd love to tell you about it.
Yeah.
I mean, the self-talk works in many different ways, right? There's many ways that you can access what you're really thinking. So there's many voices, like we said, maybe you're feeling really anxious, but underneath that, there's a whole other conversation going on, right? So there's part of you that's not affected. There's part of you that understands. There's part of you that knows where to go for your right life. So there's tools that you can use to actually kind of go a bit deeper, right? And one of them is writing with your non-dominant hand. So if you generally write with your right hand, you're going to write with the left one. And you ask yourself questions like, what's the most important thing I need to know about this, right? Mm-hmm. Or what feels really right to me? And then you, without thinking, you left your left hand scribble. You know, it's going to be all over the place. Yeah. Sometimes it's a little bit hard to read after, but that's accessing another part of your brain.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Okay.
And we're getting a lot. So if you're right-handed, you're getting a lot of information from the left side of your brain all the time. Using the other hand, suddenly you're tapping into wisdom you didn't even know you had.
Wow.
Yeah, so sometimes it feels good actually to hear from another part of you.
Yeah.
Right? A part that's not scared. A part that like is really clear or really excited by what's possible, right?
Right.
It's not just the fear, it's like, what if?
Right.
What if I did this and this was possible? And so it can be a very exciting process too.
That's very cool. And is it am I correct that the right side of your brain is the creative side? Do you know anything, like if that's where your creativity is tied to?
Yes, actually.
Okay.
So I have a little, where is it here? I'm not going to spend too much time looking for it, but yeah. I had a little picture of it in my book about on the brain and which side is what. Oh, that's right, but what you said is exactly right.
Okay.
So being able to tap into your own creativity, right?
Yeah.
Because creativity is not just about, a Picasso like painting. It's all about solving problems in your own life, right? Mm-hmm. And creating the puzzle of your own life. And everybody has tons of it, and it can be fostered and encouraged. And, there's no such thing when people say I'm not very creative. It's not true. Mm-hmm. It's just not the way you think of creativity or what you've been told creativity
is. Right. That we're all so creative and we're so resourceful. And I think we just don't allow it to come up and out of ourselves. So I really like that writing. I'm definitely going to try that using the non-dominant hand.
It's very cool. Even journaling is really because you're spending some time with yourself, right? Mm-hmm. To create space so you can hear these voices, right? Because we're in such a hurry. There's so much. We always have to fit in. And even if you sit down with a journal, it can be very simple. It can just be even words you're writing. It doesn't have to be this long text if that's not what you're into. But it's spending time. And part of you will love that. Because mm-hmm. It's like a friend. That even you're busy, you say, I'm going to make time for you. Okay? Right. We're going to sit down. We're going to chat. We're going to have a cup of tea. I'm going to find out how you're doing. So your own self loves that. And it gives you information that it's been holding back because no one's listening.
Right. Yes. It's such a good point. And that's why, I don't know about you, but that's why I started my online blog, because I actually started writing about my egg freezing journey. Mm-hmm. And because I had a lot of anxiety around it, and I really didn't feel like there was an outlet to talk about it, so I started writing. But it was, I actually found out that was fun. So, and now I love doing that. But I really never gave it that much time before. Just to write about anything I wanted to, so.
It's kind of nice because you discover yourself more.
Yes.
And also you discover, who you really are mm-hmm. in writing too and in taking that time. And sometimes it looks nothing like other people's lives. But that's fantastic and that's okay too, right? Because you've come here to do your own thing, right?
Right.
So spending time writing or with yourself in another way really gives you that opportunity to kind of be, wow, maybe having my own unique life is good too.
Yeah, it's exciting. And you might even, like you said, really excite yourself. And then after you do one thing, then there might be something new, I think, that comes on the horizon because you've already kind of forged this new path. So
That's right. That's right. Because you don't know what's going to happen next, right? But
Right.
you've changed the direction. New things are possible, but you don't know yet what they're going to be, how it's going to happen, when. But you're heading somewhere else.
Yeah.
Somewhere new.
That's so cool. Well, I really liked what you read about in your book. Is there anything else you think for, when someone's making a big decision like egg freezing? Like for me, I felt, kind of alone. Like we mentioned, the path didn't look like everybody else's. So I felt like I was taking a step, like maybe had to be a little more courageous than normal outside of my comfort zone. So is there any other, tips that you could share with us about that?
Yes, I'd really like to. You're right. Because sometimes life takes a lot of courage.
Yeah.
Right? Even when you've decided to do something, it still takes courage.
Yes.
Right? It doesn't mean you're not scared.
Right.
It means you're scared, but you're going to do it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be courageous about it. So let me just read a small section here about having this voice of courage. Because again, this is a voice you already have. So this is not voices we're inventing. We all have them. But some of us are using some of them more than others, or are listening to some of them more than others. So to conjure up this voice of courage when it's needed in life. So this chapter is called Saddle Up, Even If You Are Scared, or Choose Words of Courage. It's amazing what can happen when you're reminded to have courage. I was outside the hospital feeling scared to walk in to visit my father, who was very ill. A friend supported me by simply saying, "Be courageous." It injected a big dose of courage into me. I wasn't told that there was nothing to fear. I was advised that courage would help me handle it. I felt more calm, more accepting of circumstances, more capable of facing them. I stood taller and walked into the hospital. I would be courageous in facing this time in my life, in living through it with as much love and grace as I could muster. So something really happens even if I remind myself to have courage. There's just something that I will stand taller, stronger, and think, this is worth it, what I want to do, right? Even if it scares me, it's worth it. It's my life, So it really helps. It really helps. It's just like a friend reminding you, be courageous.
Yes, yes. And we can do it for ourselves. We don't always have to look outside, ourselves. It's already there.
Yes, and in fact, it's the strongest because that's the one voice you can never be separated from, right? So in fact, it has a much bigger impact than someone, especially if you're telling yourself over and over again that that's what's needed in that time in your life. And one thing that helps a lot too with self-talk is remind yourself of other times in your life when you showed courage. Other times that were not easy, and you got through them, and you stuck to your situation, and you made something happen that you really wanted or really needed, or you were there. And we need these stories. Again, part of you will be like, oh, I forgot about that.
Right.
Right?
Right. It's a good reminder sometimes. We need that. We need it. Yeah.
So often the stories we tell ourselves is this, horror story almost. The things that went wrong, or relationships that went awry, but to remind yourself of the good stories. If you're going to have something looping, change it, right? Tell yourself a story from beginning to end, like you were telling someone else about that time, that fabulous day you had, or that time that you loved someone so much your heart was bursting, or the time you were scared but you decided, I'm doing this anyway, and you did.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Why not? These are the stories that are really worth repeating.
Absolutely. That's so important, and it's just important to remember to even write down those stories, so then you have something to reflect and go to. If you're thinking, oh, I don't have one of those stories, well, maybe if we take the time and sit down and write them and keep that, and then we'll know, I actually do have a lot of great stories. So I think it's really good.
Now, do you ever read what you've written before and go like, oh boy, I forgot I felt that way?
I know. Yeah, sometimes I think, wow, how did I know that? 3 or 6 months later, how did I know that was going to happen, or that's really what I wanted, and you're so, when you make that time to be clear and quiet, there is such a knowing inside of you, that is really, I think, for your benefit. So I just love everything you encourage. So if somebody's, listening to the conversation today and they think, oh, it sounds great. Like, maybe in theory it sounds great, but they're not sure where to start or, how to implement it. Do you think there's like one thing that you would like them to like consider or take away from this conversation today?
I would say for me, this is the most important part, okay? Life can be very hard. In some situations, really difficult. So why make them harder by being hard on yourself? Consider giving yourself a break. Consider giving yourself the benefit of the doubt. That you're a good person with good intention, and that you're trying to make the very best life that you can, and you're going to get more skillful at it. With time, you'll get just more skillful, and so just consider that even before you know everything, just consider giving yourself a bit of a break.
That's so good. I love that you said that. I feel like I felt that in my heart. It's just so good. And even that, when you said that, it's like, oh yeah, like that's safe. That's good. That's right.
Yes.
So,
you can
oh yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. So, Maryse, where could we find you if if somebody's listening today and they're like, okay, I want more of that. I want your book, or, I want to read your blog. How would they be able to find you?
Please visit me at selftalklove.com. Selftalklove, one word.com. There you'll find I have all these guided meditations, some free worksheets. You can find information on my book. You could read the blog. So anything to do with positive and loving self-talk, you'll find there.
Great. Well, this has been absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for taking the time to share with us. I can't wait to actually download some of your worksheets and really dive into your work. I think it's so important, especially this time on the planet right now. I think there's a lot of change happening, and I think this is such good work that you're doing. So thank you for sharing it.
Thank you. It really was my pleasure, and thank you for the great work that you're doing as well with women.
Thank you. Thank you.